The Maple Leafs fall to Florida thanks to a hot tendy, but there were some worrying trends that have been persistent of late, Dave. Let's get into it on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the March 30th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morisuti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs, a daily Maple Leaf Center podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. We're also available on YouTube now as well on video format. That's Locked On Leafs on YouTube. Hit subscribe. New content coming out to you each and every weekday, Monday to Friday. All Leafs, all the time. Leafs, well, not the most, you know what? They got goalied. Like, I think that's pretty much how we can sum up that game last night against the Florida Panthers. They got goalied. Like, I didn't think they particularly, like they were the better team, I would say, but they didn't completely overwhelm them. But I think we can all agree that Alex Lyon was the king of the jungle last night, I suppose, if that's what you want to call him.
No, yeah, he definitely was. I mean, that's not an easy night for Alex Lyon, who hadn't, we didn't even know who the goaltender was going to be going into this game. Like, Paul Maurice kept it pretty close to the chest, and I heard it was Alex Lyon. I'm like, all right, here comes the Patrick Waugh 2.0 special, and yeah, that's exactly what we got in this game. Like, just unbelievable. And I was at that game too. I said, I can't believe I went to this game and saw Alex Lyon put forth a Vezina Trophy candidate worthy performance.
Like, what was the reaction of the fans after the game? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, there was not like they were obviously not happy about losing in overtime, but at the same time, they're just like, goalie played really well. I didn't see a lot of like cursing or like people looking too dejected. It was just unfortunate, right? I think it's also like, look at this point of the season, like people are just ready for the playoffs. You can kind of feel that. And even like as the goal was scored in overtime, like people were pissed off about what happened, the play and all those things, but it wasn't like end of the world kind of talk either.
Yeah, you got to tip your hat to the goaltender on the other side. Toronto, I mean, they outplayed the Florida Panthers, probably should have won that game, but ultimately, Dave, turnovers, turnovers. Like anytime we talk about a loss with this team, it typically is because they aren't protecting the puck. And we saw that happen a couple of times. And it's those big mistakes. Like I started the show by talking about a couple of worrying trends that I've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks here. You look at the last like 4 games or so, dating back to last week against the Islanders. They have been outplayed severely in the first like 5 to 10 minutes of each of those games, right? Like they just were flat out beaten. Over the weekend it was what 9-0 in shots for Carolina before Toronto woke up. Same thing the next night in Nashville. They were down like 6-0 in shots, and then they woke up about 5 to 8 minutes through the game. And then it was the same thing last night where the Panthers got off to a really good start. Jake McCabe, flubs a puck up the middle, a little pizza there, and next thing you know, it's in the back of the net, right? That's a slow start. That's a bad start. And it also goes with the other worrying trend that I have, and that's just damning turnovers. Like this is a few games now where turnovers have really become costly here. And your goaltender, like last night, there were a few that Samsonov I thought bailed the Leafs out on.
Yeah.
But in a playoff matchup, like we've seen what happens when you get the puck over, not good things. It's too tight of a hockey game, and that's when you typically lose tight, low-scoring games. Turnovers. What was last night? Tight, low-scoring game, couple turnovers. That was the difference in the hockey game.
Yeah, that's where it bothered me. It was like the Leafs played better for the full start to finish of the game, but there were moments, right? There were moments in the game where it got away from them, right? opening minute, I don't know what the heck that was. Like, I saw that coming too when they could not get it out of their zone, and then Jake McCabe, looking middle of the ice in his own zone, and I saw the Panthers player like come in, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's going to the net. And then, yeah, like Florida, they play like a desperate team. I didn't see, because from where I was sitting, I couldn't see Paul Maurice have his absolute meltdown. I looked on my phone during the game, and I like just saw him absolutely like losing his what on the bench, and I laughed. But it also just showed just how like the Panthers could not really lose that game. They couldn't afford to lose that game. And that's what happens when you play a desperate team like that. You can dominate them all they want. They're going to try their best to keep it close, and they're just going to find that mistake. Unfortunately, the late penalty that Giordano had to take, that led to the game tying goal.
Yeah. Can we also talk about really quickly as to why Timothy Liljegren was on the ice in a 1-goal game
Yeah.
late, trying to protect a lead after only playing 9 minutes prior to that?
Yeah, I don't know what Sheldon Keefe was really thinking there, especially because Jake McCabe, after he flubbed that opening minute, looked really solid. TJ Brody looked pretty solid. Like, I'd rather have Luke Shen out there because he has more confidence of what to know to do in that situation in the game. Timothy Logan, like, there was a point in the game where he was trying to receive like trying to get the puck and move it up, and he flubs it off his stick. It's because there's a confidence issue with him, and that's a lot. I understand that you want to try to get his confidence up and saying we can trust you to play in those situations, but the trust there, you got burned. Like, Sheldon Keefe got burned by putting him out there.
Yeah, like it's I don't know. I guess you'd look at it and maybe it's like a risk reward type of scenario where it's like, okay, we need to get this guy feeling confident. Let's put him in this situation and see if maybe that breathes some life into his game, which has been, down of late. And when it doesn't work out well, I suppose, then that's the risk you take if you're Sheldon Keefe when a play breaks down like that, and then you end up taking a penalty, and the tying goal ends up getting scored on that. But you know, I am curious though how Sheldon Keefe is going to go about deploying Timothy Liljegren the rest of the way, and what he thinks about him in the playoffs. Because if this team does go with a 6-man units on the blue line, it does really feel like he's the odd man out now, which a month ago wouldn't have said that. But right now, it does feel that way. That being said, Dave, Sheldon Keefe did make an interesting comment post game about the 11-7 and finding a rhythm with deploying that, which almost made me feel like maybe, just maybe, he's thinking about deploying that in the playoffs. Because 2 years ago when Luke Shen was playing with the Tampa Bay Lightning, it was an 11-7 group that went out there. I wonder if copycat league, he looks at that and he says, hey, it was successful a couple of years ago, could be successful here. I'm finally starting to get into a groove with these guys and how to go about, changing up the lines in an 11-on-7. I don't know. I just made some comments last night in the post game that made me think that it's on his mind of it'll be an option for him at the very least come playoff time. So these guys and Timothy Liljegren, if he is the 7th defenseman, he's going to need to play confident because that's probably the only way he gets into the lineup. I don't see him in a 12-6 scenario at this point.
Yeah, no, if they go 12-6, I don't see him getting in, and I don't like the 11-7 look just to get a guy in. Like, once in a while, you just have to go with your 6th best, because you see how it can impact your forwards when there's the constant having to flip flop where the lines are going.
Well,
Who's going
dude, you had Mitch Marner playing 24 and a half minutes last night. A game that didn't mean a whole lot. Why is he playing that much minutes? Like, leave some tread on those tires for the postseason, pal. There's no
exactly
need for those guys to play more than 20, 21 minutes a game from here on out. The next 8 games, their time should not exceed 21 minutes.
exactly.
Just flat out shouldn't.
And it's been a problem a lot most of the season where they do play Marner. It's mostly Mitch Marner they play a lot. Austin Matthews they kind of do
He
conservative
played, I think it was like
fun.
23 and change as well. Like, they both played significant minutes
But
last night.
and that's because of the 11-7. That's the other reason why I don't like the 11-7. Like,
Yeah.
see Austin Matthews have to take a shit with like Sam Lafferty and whoever and they don't always keep like those lines together, right? They're constantly changing. And I just feel like, is it worth it to get that defenseman in for that one game and play them? As you said, Timothy Liljegren played 9 minutes before that final, going into those final moments of the third. Like, is it worth it to play a defenseman for 9 minutes? That's still an adjustment for a guy like Timothy Liljegren to have to play that amount, where he might be used to playing 14 minutes a night.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it didn't work out last night. I guess they lost the game. It's weird though, talking about a game where they should have won, but ultimately they lose, and at the same time, it doesn't matter a whole lot for the Maple Leafs in the standings. It mattered a lot more for the Panthers. You mentioned the snap show that we saw happen with Paul Maurice there. Why don't we kind of break that down on the other side, because that was one for the ages, my friend. But before we get into that, why don't you tell the good folks about one of our show sponsors today?
Yes, and today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, and you got to go and try a Built Bar. Just got through the holiday season. I know my goal is to eat a lot healthier this year. If you're like me and you want to eat healthier, but don't want to compromise on taste, then you got to go and try a Built Bar. It is actually healthy and tasty for you. Seriously, I don't know how they do it, but they're perfect for those who want to stick to their New Year's resolution. What makes them so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in many different flavors, unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these candy bars taste so great and have amazing macros. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built bars at built.com. Now you can go and get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a Built bar. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Although you can still order them at builtbar.com and get some money off by using the promo code LOCKEDON15. That will give you 15% off your next order. So go to builtbar.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON15, and get 15% off your next order.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morris reacting to a Maple Leafs loss to the Florida Panthers. We're down to just 8 games remaining. Leafs pretty well locked into to their second spot in the Atlantic Division. They still do have to play well and win some games down the stretch, but not a whole lot to play for is kind of the theory, I suppose, that's being laid out as to why maybe we're seeing some poor games, some poor play of late. But anyways, we'll talk about that in a moment, because I do want to touch on that and why I think that's slightly problematic. But before we get into that discussion, Dave, I just sent you a tweet. It's the video of this guy, Paul Maurice, the head coach of the Florida Panthers, just absolutely losing his mind on his bench. Not the coach, or not the ref, his own players. This dude just had an absolute coronary. The team had just given up 2 straight goals. The one ended up getting called back, however, like the one where he actually lost his mind. But it was a blown coverage play on them, and he just lost it. For those on YouTube, we're going to play it right now for you guys. And boy, was it ever a show.
And Paul Maurice is giving it to his team over on that bench.
Well, maybe that's what the Panthers need. You go back to that last goal, goalie, and it looks like the Panthers are going to maybe challenge us, maybe for offside.
And Paul Maurice, he's just letting them have it. We haven't seen this this season. He's had enough.
Because that was just like 30 seconds of him just giving it to his team. If you're listening via podcast form, go check it out on the YouTube feed just to see his literal brain about to melt off of his head, like legitimately had some blood vessels popping off his forehead, but just giving it to his team, and there was some profanities in there. Called them a word that we can't say on this PG rated program. Like I don't recall seeing a coach lose it like that on the bench to his players, to an official. Yep, I've seen that, but to his own players on the bench, not in a locker room. That's you don't see that happen too often, Dave.
No, you really don't. And again, when I saw the video, I was laughing. I was laughing at first, but then you're just like,
Could you hear him yelling in the
no,
arena?
I couldn't hear him either. Like, I was not, to be fair, I was way up in the boonies at Scotiabank Arena, so there would have been no way I would have been able to hear. I didn't even see it from where I was, because obviously I'm on the bench side
Right.
of the rink, so I didn't even see it either. But like, yeah, I haven't heard a coach rip into it, like, or seen, sorry, a coach rip into his players like that in a really long. That's old school. Like, even John Tortorella is probably like the closest example, and like Paul Maurice usually doesn't do that. Like, that's a crazy thing, right? But
I can recall certain players and coaches going after like a one-on-one little bicker, like one that we always kind of remember. Remember Jared Bednar early in his tenure in Colorado, him and Nate McKinnon going after each other, and Nate ends up falling backwards in the middle of the argument, which is just a hilarious gif. But rarely do we see a coach addressing the team as a whole in that way.
yeah, because like, it wasn't like one player he was unhappy with. It was the entire team that was playing terrible. Like that, if that goal that was challenged for offside, if that goal stood, I think I might have been a different hockey game, because the Leafs were just pounding the Panthers in that part. And like, also think about where the Panthers were in this situation. Like, going into this game, there was a lot of chatter outside coming into this one. I don't know if you saw the Keith Kachuk comments where he called the Panthers soft, and then
Oh,
he said
why?
they
I
need
heard
to
him
play
live.
more like the Senators. Like, oh man, a team that's chasing the Panthers in the playoff race. Keith Kachuk's just like, yeah, you guys need to start playing like those guys. And I was like, I'm sure Paul Maurice saw that, wasn't happy, and like, just the way that game was going, like, that was like the fuse that just set him off.
Well, I think like the yeah, Keith Kachuk called him soft, which is probably the PG version of what Paul Maurice called them on the bench. And again, if you can read lips, you know exactly what he said if you watch the video. But yeah, yeah, it was an interesting situation that went down. But hey, they ended up winning the game. And afterwards, he was asked about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you know, it happens." He said it was therapeutic for him because he was just so angry with the way that they were playing. It was more a cleanse of his mind and just therapeutic, just for him to get it out there. So all was good. They won the game and they stay alive in the playoff race. And so I guess the Panthers were happy. The Leafs, not so much. Which does lead to another conversation that I kind of quickly want to have before we move on. We got some other news that we got to get to, some quick tidy news. We're getting down to a time where I feel like we've been talking about now for about a week, where it's like these games don't matter. There's not much to play for. The games don't matter. And every time they lose, it's like, they just, they've got nothing to play for. What do you expect? I don't like that narrative, because when you look at other teams like, Boston, for example, they're not using that excuse. They're beating teams 7-0 right now. They got nothing to play for, yet they're crushing teams. So I don't like that narrative, and I'm going to stop using it. So if you catch me saying, there's nothing to play for, like, who cares? Stop me and remind me that the Bruins don't do that, right? Like, that's maturity. It's an 82 game season, okay? Not a 70 game season. Play the full 82, and then let's pick it up after that. Because I'm starting to worry that these turnovers that we spoke of earlier aren't just, them being lackadaisical because, oh, we're not playing for anything and the details aren't there. I don't want these errors to turn into habits. And when you do that for many games that don't matter to you, things can become habitual. And come game one, if that is a habit that's in your game, uh, not going to work out very well for this Maple Leafs team against a club like Tampa Bay, who will feast on those details or lack thereof and the mistakes that are made.
I don't like this idea of flipping a switch, right? Like, oh, don't worry, come playoff time, like we know we have to get our game. We can get our game there. Like, no, you should not just have to flip a switch. You mentioned the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins have been playing their style of game from the start of the season, and you haven't. And the thing that's been impressive about the Bruins season is you haven't seen them let the foot off the gas, right? That's what you want to see from the Leafs, right? You want to see the idea of these games aren't we're not looking too much at like the results. We're just looking at the process and things like that. Like you hear those types like that type of talk, and it's just like, well, like the results still somewhat matter too, right? Because at the end of the day, like when you lose, you lost the game. You didn't win the game. You didn't do enough to win the game. And those are things that now at the end of the season, when if the Leafs were not to advance, you can point to how there were certain things during the season that popped up that they didn't address. They should have addressed, and it came back to bite them. It's happened before, like the power play. You went 0 for 4. Shouldn't be happy about that. You should be trying to do whatever you can to fix that power play,
And they give up a power play goal.
right? Like the special teams, if there's like we talk about things to be concerned about, whether it's goaltending, the defense. I'm more concerned about the Leafs their special teams
Oh, yeah.
because it's been so inconsistent all year long. Sometimes the power play looks amazing. Sometimes the power play looks like absolute garbage, and they allow shorthanded chances or shorthanded goals. And the penalty kill can't get that one kill you need late in the game where you're up by one. Like those are things you have to get in line before the playoffs. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a close game, like we have seen time and time again.
Yep, couldn't agree with you. Couldn't agree with you more there, pal. Today's show is brought to you also in part by FanDuel. The NCAA tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and it's because FanDuel has given new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 and back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. Sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet bonus, and you can wager on everything from money line to point spreads, goal scorer, shot props, whatever you want. It's all in the app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morisuti. Just a couple of quick notes that we want to get to before the end of today's show. We have some prospect notes, I suppose. Really, really good news. Matthew Knies, Leafs top prospect, a guy we're hoping signs with this team in the next couple of weeks and may or may not be a factor for the team in the playoffs. I'm actually curious, before we get to the news, if you had to, like, gun to your head, give me a percentage chance of Matthew Knies playing meaningful playoff games. What's the percentage of that happening for you this season?
20%.
Yeah, so you're a little low on that, eh? Yeah, I'm roughly the same. I was gonna say like 28% in that range. Yeah.
I've seen the playoff project. Like I saw Justin Bourne make his playoff projections and saying Matthew Knies will play the third line with I think it was like Ryan O'Reilly and I think it was Sam Lafferty. I can't remember exactly what the line was.
I think Lafferty, yeah.
Like third, like that's a lot to ask. Like Zach Aston Reese, I don't know if you've watched his play lately.
Oh, he was one of the best players in Florida, man. One of the best players against Florida. Had a goal, 4 slot shots, penalty shot. Like he was electric in that game.
Like he's playing playoff style hockey right now. He's one of the few that are playing playoff style hockey. I understand. I would love to see the bottom six do more offensively and have guys that can create offense a little more, but at the same time, like let's not expect that that's going to come easily for Matthew Nyes. He's having an incredible season. I can't wait to see him play, but I'm not hinging my bets on him to be an option in the bottom six of the playoffs. That's just asking a little bit too much. Is it possible? Very much so. We have seen college players come out of college and play significant minutes in the playoffs. I think back to Charlie McAvoy when he made his debut for the Boston Bruins. It came in the playoffs. So not out of this, not out of the realm of things, but I don't want to make that something that I'm hoping for, because that's really tough ask.
Yeah. It's also, I think, going to come down to what their identity of their bottom six, what they want. Do they want more scoring, or do they want to be more responsible and tough to play against, right? That physical factor where Zach Maurice might be able to throw the body around a little bit more than Matthew Knight. He's got the body, but I don't know if he has the willingness, the veteran savviness to do stuff like that come playoff time. Maybe he does. I don't know. It's something that we'll have to find out, I suppose, when he gets here in the next week or so. But some news about Matthew Nyes. He was named a finalist for the Hobie Baker Award today. 3 guys named finalists, so he's in the top 3. So it's Matthew Nyes, Adam Fantilli, Canadian, actually GTA, I believe, boy, Adam Fantilli, and his teammate, Logan Cooley, also named a finalist alongside him. So Matthew Nyes, he's got an opportunity to win this award. I don't know if he will. I think one of Cooley or Fantilli, honestly, probably wound up taking the award, but still to be nominated is still in good company. I would say 21 goals, 20 assists, 41 points for him this season, and it was a spectacular year. And congratulations from us here at Locked On Leafs to Matt Nyes for the nomination, and good luck. Hopefully, he wins it.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely deserves to be in the conversation, but yeah, there's been some very good performances along with Matthew Nyes this season. I actually don't know, when are they announcing it?
I'm literally looking up right now, April 7th.
April 7th. Okay, so it's during the Frozen Four. So
it's the night before the championship game.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, look at the players he is in that finals with, right? Fantilli is supposed to be one of the top prospects, going into the NHL draft, and Logan Cooley was a top 5 pick. That's pretty good company for Matthew Nyes to be with. Like that's who he had to, those are the players he's going up against on in the NCAA. He's not playing against players that are, a tier below him. He's actually playing in a different class of players, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Logan Cooley this year, 57 points, which is a slightly more than the 41 that Matty Nyes had. And then Adam Fantilli had 64 points as a freshman. 64 points as a freshman this year from Nobleton, Ontario. So my money would be on Adam Fantilli winning this award, but still pretty good stuff for Matty Nyes to have a good sophomore campaign to at least be a finalist and be in the running here for it. Really quickly, also some Marlies news. Dave, you want to share with the people some new additions coming across the pond to help the Marlies on their little playoff race?
Yeah, one we were kind of waiting to see it happen. Topi Niemela, his season with Karpat finished. They were eliminated in the playoffs. He is, and we weren't sure when exactly he's coming over. Well, the Marlies did announce that he is coming over. So he's joining a Marlies team that's expected to go hopefully deep in the playoffs. Had a bit of a off season. He didn't put up the offensive production.
Yeah, down year. A little bit of a down year.
A little bit of a down year, but now he's got a new challenge. He's coming to a new team. Let's see how he deals with that. Then kind of a bit of a surprise one. I didn't see this one coming, but Dennis Hildeby, or better known now as the Hildebeest, he will also be joining the Marlies. He was signed to an entry level contract in the summer, so Leafs didn't have to sign him to any deals or anything like that. He was already here. He actually had a pretty decent season himself. He wasn't. I don't like. He was in a bit of a timeshare with Farjasad. Again, not as good as he was last year, Although he only played 7 games last year, he played 21 games this year. No, pretty decent season for himself, but you're gonna notice some notice some very easily. 6'6", 234 pounds. He's listed at elite prospect. So I don't know how exactly he'll be used with the Marlies. I mean, it'll be good to have some depth. It seems like it's Joseph Wall, and then Eric Shalgren, and then it's Dennis Hildeby. So it's going to be interesting to see him come over as well. There was a lot of buzz from his when he was picked, mainly because of his ginormous frame.
Yes, big stature, and he was a double overager as well. So they kind of took him as a bit of an older prospect. But yeah, you mentioned he was in a timeshare with Farstat. He was in a timeshare with Matt Tompkins. Does that name sound familiar to you?
Yes, it does.
Who's Matt Tompkins?
He was. I remember he played for Canada at the Olympics, right?
He did. He did play for Canada at the Olympics. I think he was their guy. He was the starter for Canada at the Olympic Games. So he had a little timeshare with Matt Tompkins. So I would imagine that Matt let him know what it's like playing in Canada or living in Canada, as he would be very familiar with it. Edmonton, Alberta guy. It's not a Toronto guy, but still Canadian nonetheless. He actually had better numbers than Tompkins too. So he played less games. He had 21 games. Tompkins had 32, but a 226 goals against and a 918 save percentage, both better than Matt Tompkins when he was with Farstat. So
I should also add that Keith Petruzzelli is also one of the other goaltenders of ours. He's actually played quite a bit this year, so we'll see. We'll see how the Leafs kind of sort out the Marlies sort out those minutes there.
Well, and technically, they also have under contract last year's Hobey Baker Award winner, Dryden McKay.
Yeah, he's with the Growlers.
Yeah, I would assume that Petruzzelli will probably get sent down to the Growlers too.
Yeah, I would probably say so. At one point, Dylan Ferguson was also with the Marlies as well.
Yeah, now he's putting up 48 save performances for the Ottawa Senators. So there's that.
Just like we all expected. But yeah, no, I would say you're going to see Dryden McKay and Petruzzelli playing most of the time down there in the ECHL, and then you'll have you'll have Wall
and the Hildebeest. You got the Wildebeest and the Hildebeest.
It's gonna be nice. I can't. I'm actually like, the Marlies. They've been very. I kept my eye on them.
Top of the division, man. They're gonna finish division crown, division champs. Should go in a long run.
Yeah, we should try to get to some Marlies games. I used to go quite a bit a few years ago, and then just get busy. But I do want to get to some Marlies game, especially playoff time.
When the Marlies playoffs start? Playoffs. AHL playoffs. I'll look that up really quickly. They probably start in the next 2 weeks. They usually start like a week before NHL, don't they?
Yeah, they're usually beforehand.
AHL playoff primer March.
So actually, the regular season ends after the NHL season. That same weekend
is when. Oh, really? Okay.
Ends on April 16th.
Interesting. I thought it ended like a week before or something, but maybe it's different every year, potentially. All right. So, 2 more, hopefully, potential future Maple Leafs joining the Baby Buds. And it gives you another chance to get lock your eyes on these guys who've been over in Europe. Might not know a whole lot about them, just heard their names. Topi Niemela especially has been named that's more popular, I would say, than Hildeby, but chance to watch him live in person if you make it out to a Marlies game, which again would be a lot of fun to get to. All right, Dave, that'll do it for us here today. Tomorrow we'll come back and we'll tee up the weekend back to back, and you and I both have a little bit of, we got a soft spot for wrestling. Both grew up kind of wrestling fans, still kind of follow along, but it's WrestleMania weekend. We're putting together, Dave, our Maple Leafs edition WrestleMania lineup card. I'm excited for that one. It'll be a lot of fun. So we'll get to that tomorrow. So make sure that you return for tomorrow's show. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast, though. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morisuti. Leave a like and a comment if you would down below here on YouTube. That would be very thankful. We would be if you would do that. We'll be back with an episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.